A lot of people hate on both seasons of the Senran Kagura anime adaptation. I never really had any problems with it. Like, honestly, it's only considered no context if you haven't really played the game franchise. If you played the game franchise, then you pretty much understand and all that stuff. You pretty much understand. You don't really care what they're putting on in certain episodes of the anime adaptation of a game franchise. But honestly, that's why this video exists. It exists to basically give you the full context guide for Senran Kagura Season 2 Shinovi Masters. Honestly, the first one doesn't really need any context because that one was basically, that one follows the story. That one follows the original story of Senran Kagura Burst in a couple of ways. So honestly, that one doesn't really need any full context if you've already played the first game, Senran Kagura Burst. The one that needs full context is Senran Kagura Shinovi Masters. And I'm going to get started with that one. What is up, you guys? Bankai Extensio here, and I'm going to be giving you a full context guide of Senran Kagura Season 2 Shinovi Masters. So, Shinovi Masters, let's start off with the title real quick. Shinovi Masters, right? Right, Shinovi Masters. Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? Yeah, it does, because apparently there is a Senran Kagura mobile game, which is recent to this very day. It's the most recent Senran Kagura game there is. The gacha game, Senran Kagura New Link Shinobi Masters. Shinobi Masters, Senran Kagura New Link. Except the difference between Shinobi Masters and Shinobi Masters is that Shinobi Masters for Senran Kagura Season 2 is spelled with a Shinovi. And for New Link, it's Shinobi Master, which is spelled with the BI instead of the VI. So I guess they wanted to put a little bit of a difference between the Season 2 anime adaptation and the mobile game itself. So that's a little bit of a difference. Basically, you know how Fubuki, you guys already know Fubuki, for those who are probably just anime watchers of Senran Kagura and have never played a single game in the franchise, I'm going to get you started with a little bit of context, but let's continue. For those who know who Fubuki is, she is the main antagonist of Senran Kagura Season 2. And she's also, I believe she's probably the main antagonist. Yeah, I think she's the main antagonist for the game itself, for the mobile game Senran Kagura New Link as well. I've never played New Link, so I can't really say. I've only played a little bit of New Link, but can't really tell if Fubuki is the main antagonist or something like that, or probably there's a true main antagonist in in the New Link game. So I can't really say. But Fubuki is the main antagonist of Season 2 of Senran Kagura Shinobi Masters. Now, basically, Marvelous was basically doing the whole thing where they was all like, you know what, let's just slap on Fubuki on Season 2 and make her the main antagonist. I mean, it won't really do any harm. Trust me, it did a lot of harm because not that many people have been given full context of why Fubuki was even put in the season. Why did they give us a whole slap on the wrist season and just, you know, do it like that? Because Marvelous wasn't thinking when they literally put on this season. Now, Ninja Flash, Senran Kagura Ninja Flash, they did that one right. They did that one right. I have no problems with that one. I don't care if they got some stuff wrong. I think they did that one right. They covered the characters' backstories with only like how many episodes was it? 10, 12? I don't know, but they covered the characters' backstories and everything so well and all that stuff. Like, they covered the characters' backstories and everything so well. But like Season 2, I just feel like Season 2 just went down low. Not only that, but for those who've seen the first season, you guys already know the difference between the first season's animation and the second season's animation. The first season had that beautiful animation that we all love, and the second season had a little bit of budget issues. And because of that, I'm not going to go into full detail about the budget issues, but because of that, we had to resort to this type of animation right here. And this is the same amount of animation that's used with, I think this is the same animation that's also used for, actually no, I think the animation for the Estival versus OVA was a little bit downgraded even more next to Shinobi Master Season 2, because if you look at it, it looks a little bit different from how I see it. I guess it doesn't make any difference to you, but to me, a little bit of it does. But like, if you look at the difference between Season 1 and Season 2's animation, I think the boobs were a huge downgrade as well. Like the boobs looked a lot more bigger in Season 1 for the characters than they did in Season 2. I think Season 2 just literally just cut it down right there, to be honest. But Season 2 does have the whole censored and uncensored stuff, so there's that too, I guess. Some people wish that. I mean, some people let's not forget, we got people doing uncensored and we got people doing uncensored patches, like uncensored mods and stuff for the Senran Kagura games, and that one's getting a little too out of hand, I guess. I mean, some people, I guess, want to showcase this type of thing, but do as you please. But anyway, yes, there was the budget issues for season 2 and all that stuff, which is why we got this downgrade type of animation. Not that I really hate it or anything, but a lot of the Senran Kagura fans really hate it. So we've already talked about the title and all that stuff, the difference between the title and the whole animation and all that stuff. Let's get to the characters now, and then we're gonna get to the flashbacks. But the characters for right now. Now the characters. So you guys are familiar with Yumi and her team. Minori, Shiki, Yozakura, and Murakumo. And then from the other side of the new Hebijo girls, we got Miyabi, Imu, Ryobi, Ryona, and Murasaki. Now, these characters were introduced in Senran Kagura Shinovi Versus. They were not introduced in this anime. Now, this is only said for those who only watch the Senran Kagura anime and are only Senran Kagura anime watchers and not game franchise players. I'm going to fill you in right now. Both teams were introduced in Senran Kagura Shinovi Versus. Shinovi Versus is basically a continuation of Burst, you could say. It's like a continuation of Burst because it's after Burst. I mean, I can't remember how the corresponding games released, but Shinovi Versus is after Burst because I know they explain the information and everything about what happened during their battle against Hebijo and all that stuff, and the battle they have now. Shinovi Versus basically takes place during the whole Shinobi Battle Royale. It takes place after the battle in Burst and all that stuff with Asuka and her team of Hanzo against the Hebijo. So basically now, this is like, you could say, probably, I think, a year after their battle against Hebijo. Now they're facing off against Yumi and their team and all that stuff. And we got the new Hebijo girls, of course, as well. So you play from 4 sides of the story: Hanzo, Gessen, new Hebijo, and home of the Crimson Squad and all that stuff. And, and this is where we get to the flashbacks. We're going to get to the flashbacks in a sec, but I'm going to be explaining the characters. Now you already know that they were not introduced in the anime because basically Marvelous didn't do any like, you know, like what I wanted them to kind of do, and this is going to be for a separate video, what I wanted them to kind of do was to basically just base the anime off of the games and all that stuff, like base the anime adaptation and just, you know, continue on with the game story and all that stuff through the anime. Like, you know how they did with Burst and all that stuff, how they did with Senran Kagura Season 1 Ninja Flash, where they basically copied Burst and all that stuff and just copy and pasted it into the anime adaptation. I kind of wanted them to continue on with it and give us a Shinovi Versus anime adaptation for Senran Kagura. And then after that, you could go on with probably say you could go on with Peach Beach Splash. Then you could go on with, I think you could go on with Estival Versus, then Peach Beach Splash, and you just do it like that. I honestly would have just liked it that way because, you know, with the anime cutscenes and all that stuff we had for the Senran Kagura games for Peach Beach Splash, Estival Versus, Estival Versus, I honestly think it looked good that way, to be honest. It looked good that way, and it looked like it could have definitely become in the anime adaptation if possible. But now you guys know that characters like Yumi, Miyabi, and the rest of their teams were introduced in Senran Kagura Shinovi Versus. They were not introduced in the Senran Kagura anime adaptation. They were introduced in Shinovi Versus because honestly, if they were going to continue from where Ninja Flash left off, they could have honestly covered the Shinovi Versus in at least those couple of episodes, just like how they did Ninja Flash. Because I'm honestly a bit disappointed. Not that I really care, but I'm a bit disappointed they didn't really follow the games, you know, the game franchise's story and all that stuff. Because honestly, I just felt like Marvelous gave us a slap on the wrist type of story and just wanted to end it that way. They just gave us any season at this point. They just gave us any made up story at this point. But anyway, there's more characters to talk about as well. There's the Mikadoga sisters, Renka, Hanabi, and Kafuru. Now, these three over here, the Mikadoga sisters, were introduced in Senran Kagura Estival Versus. They were introduced in Senran Kagura Estival Versus. And like I said, Estival Versus is another one. Estival Versus, along with Peach Beach Splash, are 2 other anime adaptations. Like, we could have gotten a 3rd season for Senran Kagura covering Estival Versus, and we could have gotten a 4th season for Senran Kagura covering Peach Beach Splash. Now, remember, I don't remember how corresponding games go, but I've definitely played through all the Senran Kagura games, so I know, you know, I know which one should be like I said, I don't know how they go in corresponding order, but I definitely know my history and everything on them because, you know, my channel covers pretty much everything Senran Kagura wise, as well as anime, gaming, and other stuff as well. So drop a sub if you haven't. But yes, Estival versus could have been season 3. Shinovi, my bad. Peach Beach Splash could have been season 4. Like they could have just done it like that. Like it wouldn't really be that hard to just cover the game story and all that stuff in the anime adaptation, if you know what I mean. But yes, the Mikadoga sisters were introduced in Senran Kagura Estival versus. Now for Kagura and Naraku were introduced in Senran Kagura Deep Crimson. That's a game for the 3DS, and Estival versus is a game for the PS4. Shinobi versus the game for the PS Vita. And yes, all these games are on PC, by the way. Burst Renewal is on the PC, but the original Senran Kagura Burst before it was remastered and all that stuff, that's for the Nintendo 3DS. So, I'd say you guys should get into the franchise. If you've only just watched the anime, I say play the franchise because you'd get a lot more detail in the games than the anime, obviously. But yes, I've pretty much already explained the introduction and all that stuff, but let me explain Fubuki as well again. I don't know if I explained Fubuki already, but Fubuki, along with Sekko and Genko, the three of them were introduced in Senran Kagura New Link. They're introduced in the most recent Senran Kagura game, Senran Kagura New Link, Shinobi Master Senran Kagura New Link. So, I guess Marvelous was all like, you know what, let's just take Fubuki real quick, and then, you know, let's just copy and paste her on a Senran Kagura season for season 2, and then we'll literally just make her the main antagonist and just leave it at that. But anyway, with the flashbacks right here, I'm going to explain the flashbacks. So, Shinobi Masters, Senran Kagura Shinobi Masters. Now, the thing about Shinobi Masters is it's basically like you could say it's like a continuation, like basically something that was maybe left out in Shinovi versus. I mean, it was probably something that Takagi decided to like. Takagi probably decided to at least, you know, he probably decided later on that maybe he could do something different, and it was all like Marvelous was probably all like, you know what, yeah, let's put some secret character in Yumi's backstory and all that stuff, and just, you know, like, by the way, Fubuki was not mentioned in Shinobi versus, by the way. So she was not mentioned in Shinobi versus because by the time Shinobi versus was out, you know, Fubuki wasn't even like, I don't think she was a character to begin with at all until later on when New Link dropped. So Fubuki was not thought about. Fubuki was not heard in Shinobi versus or any of that stuff. She was heard later on with New Link and also the season 2 of Senran Kagura Shinobi Masters. But during Yumi's backstory, you know, before she met Yozakura Shiki, before Kurokage, Yumi's grandfather, took in Yozakura Shiki Minori Murakumo, Yumi was still training alone, and she met a little girl named Fubuki, who was brought to the dojo as well. And Fubuki stayed with them for a little bit of days. Now, if you want to know more about Fubuki's backstory, you can watch my Senran Kagura discussion video talking about Fubuki's backstory. It'll tell you everything about Fubuki. But anyway, the next flashback is Asuka versus Yumi. This is a flashback during Senran Kagura Shinobi versus. Now, during this flashback, it is during the fight during the Shinobi Battle Royale. The Shinobi Battle Royale is basically where both Shinobi academies go to war or something like that. It's both where Shinobi academies go to war, and whichever Shinobi team wins, whichever Shinobi academy wins, that winning team gets to burn down the losing team's academy and all that stuff. And this is when Yumi was on the path of dark justice. She was doing everything for her grandfather, wanting to follow in her footsteps of, say, the rogue ninja or whichever, because of how her grandfather used to do things in the past and all that stuff. How he couldn't stand the ways of how good Shinobi do things. So he ended up becoming a rogue Shinobi, following his own path. But he did not want Yumi and the rest of the girls to turn out like him. But during the Shinobi Battle Royale, Asuka and Yumi battled it out in the final showdown. Asuka wanted to, you know, change Yumi and, you know, change the whole dark justice thing, while Yumi was fighting for the path of her grandfather, trying to follow in his footsteps. But with that, Kurokage stood in and stopped the fight. And, you know, Asuka and them won. That's why Yumi's good now. Yumi is good now because Asuka and them helped them. Asuka was the one who changed Kurokage before he died that day. And because Kurokage was he was suffering from an illness. He was basically sick and he was on his deathbed. But that's when later on he came and stopped the fight between Asuka and Yumi. And Kurokage told Yumi that he did not want her to turn out like him. He wanted the girls to follow their own shinobi path as well, shinobi. And with that, it was pretty much over. That was basically a flashback from Shinovi Versus. A lot of people are probably asking, where is that flashback from? Why is that flashback showing up? We never saw this in the previous season of Senran Kagura. That's because, like I said, Marvelous is just like, Marvelous, they're just going crazy with the seasons and all that stuff. They're going crazy with the seasons and they just want to like pretty much add anything. They went crazy with this season and just pretty much added anything on it. And, they didn't give us any context. Well, that's why I call this a context guide, because Marvelous didn't really give any context and all that stuff. This is why I say that Shinobi Masters should have honestly been the last season. Like season 2, yes, season 2 is considered the last season, I guess. And I don't think they're going to make a season 3 anytime soon, because they cannot continue. They definitely not going to be able to make a comeback with a third season. What they could have honestly did was do Shinobi Versus. Like they could have covered Shinobi Versus' story as a season 2. If they did good with Ninja Flash, they could have done good with a season 2 of Shinobi Versus. Then they could have did Estival Versus. Then they could have did Peach Beach Splash. After Peach Beach Splash, they could have then again, Deep Crimson could have been a season, but then again, that's like in a different Senran Kagura universe. So then again, not really, because then we would have got the timelines both fucked up. So not Deep Crimson. But yes, after Peach Beach Splash's season of season 4, they could have honestly covered Shinobi Masters as the last season. I honestly thought it could have done it that way, because then we would have gotten, and honestly the same, we should have kept the same animation. Like the same animation should have been left for season 1. Like from season 1, they should have kept that animation, because I would have loved to see Miyabi and Yumi and everyone else, and Kagura, Naraku, and the Mikadoka sisters, and how they all look like in season 1's animation. Like honestly, I would have loved that one more, because season 2 kind of looks more like a fucking downgrade or something like that. But I pretty much explained the flashback right there. That flashback is basically Asuka versus Yumi in the final battle of the Shinobi Battle Royale, while the girls are pretty much just watching their leaders face off against each other, and that's pretty much it. That pretty much is a flashback from Shinobi Versus. Now that exact animation isn't really shown in Shinobi Versus. They don't really show it like that. But Shinobi Versus is where the Shinobi Battle Royale was held and all that stuff. Shinobi Versus is where everything, and it's where Yumi and everyone else was introduced in. So that's why I say Shinobi Versus, because that's where the battle was shown. It was shown on a field between Asuka against Yumi in the final battle. Like you literally play that battle, because that's a game for the PS Vita. So I honestly think you guys should play the franchise more than just watch the anime at first, because honestly you can learn a lot more about the characters through the game franchise and get more details and everything on the game story and all that stuff than just pretty much watch it through the anime itself, because the anime doesn't really show that much interesting detail. I mean, Ninja Flash season 1 Senran Kagura Ninja Flash did it good and all, but like season 2 was kind of a downgrade, and the animation was just a downgrade too, man. I don't really care for the censored and uncensored stuff, man. I really don't care. I just want to be able to watch anime the right way. I don't bitch about animation or anything like that, but season 1's animation, I felt like it was connected to me in so many ways. Season 2's animation looks like a downgrade, because the boobs look a little bit more smaller than before. When I see Katsuragi groping Ikaruga, I'm like, I thought Ikaruga's boobs were more bigger than that. I thought everyone's boobs were more bigger than that. Why is it that the boobs look like a total downgrade in animation? Oh wait, that's because it is a total downgrade. Season 1 did it like just so better in so many ways. I don't know what to say, but it really kind of did. Yeah, season 2 is pretty much hated a lot. Season 2 is hated a lot, not because of the story, the no context and all that stuff. Everything, man, because there's not many things people know since they've never played the Senran Kagura game franchise. But I recommend you get into the game franchise and start off with Senran Kagura Burst. If you have a PS4, start off with Burst Renew, because that's kind of a remaster. So I think that's pretty much it. But for Senran Kagura anime watchers, what did you actually think of the second season? And most of all, what did you think of the first season as well? I'd like to hear your opinion on the first season as well, because I know that one was good. But what did you think about the second one? Was it really good? Was it horrible? Was it not to your liking? Was it... I don't know. I don't know how you guys would honestly feel about this if you haven't played the game franchise. But I'd like to hear this from people who have also played the game franchise, of what you think about season 2. And of course, from those who've never played the game franchise, I'd like to hear your opinions on it too, and I'd like to hear if you're interested in even trying out the game franchise. I think you guys would like it. But other than that, you guys, I think that's pretty much it. That is the context review of Senran Kagura Shinobi Masters Season 2. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later. Bankai to the motherfucking Tensho, signing out.